Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. You can find me on all the socials as Skeindeer, on Instagram, on Blue Sky now, and I have a Ravelry shop of knitting patterns where I make Norwegian inspired knitting designs like the one I'm wearing and other things, easier things. And yeah, so come find me there. But in this episode we are not going to be talking about knitting at all. What? I'll be talking a little bit about crochet in the end, but primarily I'm going to focus on a new craft. I do not fall into new crafts very often. In fact, it's maybe like once a decade that I feel like exploring something that isn't knitting. What a concept. I am really a very craftual kind of gal. I like my knitting and it was even quite big for me to venture into crochet, though I seem to go back to knitting all the time. That's just my preference, but you know, I found a new craft. That's what's happened. Also, this is my co-host Embla. She has a lot to say. Well, she just did have a lot to say, but then I fed her, so I guess we're fine now. The war has been averted. So all the stuff I'm going to be talking about today started with a fairly innocent little dabble onto eBay, a site I've not really used a lot in the past couple of years, because I was looking for, you know, more of these sort of pillows that I've been decorating my flat with, and tapestries that match, bell pulls, all of those things. And they are so hard to find. I've been trying to find them when thrifting home in Norway, to no avail. I've heard that apparently people are buying them to kind of turn them into mittens, so they're basically ruining the cushions, and it's stressing me out. So I can't find them, so I tried to find some on eBay, which is how I ended up with that pillow over there, whereas this one my grandma made, I think. So that's kind of how it's going. Sometimes I'm lucky. Tomorrow I'm getting a tapestry that I managed to find on American eBay, and my friends brought it over from America. So yes, I am digressing. Instead of finding one of said pillows or tapestries or bell pulls, I came across a pattern. This simple little thing, and I wasn't going to make anything here. I just wanted to get the pattern and see what is a complete sort of whatever this craft is kind of pattern. What did it look like? What's all the information that they're getting you, so that I at least have that for future reference. And it's like I don't know myself at all, because of course, as soon as I got this pattern, I knew I had to make this, and it made sense to start with the smaller of the three items. So we got a tapestry here, we got a bell pull, and we got a cushion. And I can't sew to save my life, so I'm not even going to think about how I'm going to be making the backing of these, especially to make the cushion even functional. I'm not thinking about that just yet. I have a very good sewing machine, so that's a start. It's just there's no good seamstress living under this roof. So I decided I gotta make this cushion first of all. Why is she so adorable right now? For those who don't know, this is Embla, my 11-month-old puppy. She's 11 months in 2 days. And she's so well behaved right now. It's a rare moment we all need to take in before we move swiftly on to this embroidery shenanigans that I have fallen into. So what's my experience, first of all? Close to zero. I have some experience with cross stitch with wool, with yarn, when I was a kid, like maybe 10 years old, give or take. I remember getting a kit from my mum when we were on a trip to my grandparents' cabin that had neither plumbing nor electricity, and you had to do something. So I got a kit of a swan and the water. So the water was blue, the sky was blue, and the swan was white. So there was probably like, what, 3 to 4, 5 colors in that set. And it was one of those like printed on canvases you just kind of stitch through, and I think I did maybe like 3 to 5 columns of the whole thing. I don't even know if I got to the swan. It felt very, very slow for a little child, although the kit was made for kids. But you know, that's where I'm at, knowledge-wise, experience-wise. So at least I've done some stitching with, you know, yarn thread. Putting this aside for a bit, because there's a lot of steps that I had to get into before I could even get started on this, and I will be showing you how far I've got towards the end of this very long-winded rant. I have never written notes like I have written for this episode. First of all, this whole embroidery shenanigans, I'm struggling to find the right words, like what's the terminology here, and I'm expecting to be told in the comments from people who know more than I do about, you know, the different terms and words that we're using in that world that may not be the same as that we're using in knitting, and I'm trying my best to learn them here. One thing that I came across quite early is this kind of, is it needlepoint or is it tapestry? And I've been saying tapestry because like literally the pieces I have hanging on my walls, I don't know what else to call them, but the craft to make them is not tapestry. I mean, people who are selling these kits are very often calling them tapestry. People selling the yarn, I mean, they are called tapestry wools. But that's not the craft. Tapestry craft is like, actually you need a loom. It's like weaving. It's like a whole ordeal. It's very, very difficult. I am simply getting a mesh to stitch into. But honestly, sometimes I know I can be a little bit cranky when I get advice I never asked for, like just kind of backseat crafters. But I really do want to be told the terminology this time. I really want to get it right, and I find it very, very difficult to know what to even call this stuff and what to even look up online, because having to find resources for this, because traditional old school Norwegian patterns are true to form, not a lot of information. In fact, I could show you the entire pattern. This is it. This is the pattern both in English and Norwegian. Literally, this is the length of the pattern, okay? So it's not a lot to go by. Actually, as I was stitching on the thing that I will be showing you when I get to it, I was lucky that a video showed up in my YouTube algorithm by the Stitchery, who is a YouTuber I'm a big fan of. I enjoy watching her videos and just sitting here crafting away and just listening to her explorations into various crafts, but primarily embroidery. And she had a video on Bargello, but I don't think that's the same as what I'm doing. However, they are using a lot of similar stitches and techniques and tools, so that was helpful. But I think Bargello is a very particular look, and I'm doing a different look, but it's got similar stitches. And what are those stitches? I guess it's satin stitch, but whenever I'm looking up satin stitch, I'm getting these like super fine, you know, these light cotton threads, literally threads that are built up to several satin stitches to make, say, a leaf or something very like dainty and ornate. And so yeah, in a way we could say it's satin stitch. Just so you know what I'm talking about here, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's give you a close-up of this cushion that I got off eBay, because it's so neatly made. I almost thought it was made by machine. So you get an idea of what these stitches look like. Like this could have been made using cross stitch instead, but instead each kind of chart cell is consisting of these parallel threads that in this case is 4 threads per column cell in the chart, and it will equally be crossing 4 kind of holes, rows in the canvas. I'll get to that in the future. So that's one version, but then you have this cushion here that my nan made, and here is using 2 threads instead. So here it's going across 2 rows correspondingly. So it doesn't, there's no rule here to say that you gotta use like X amount of stitches. What makes a stitch is just that it is square. How many rows, or I guess threads, stitches within the stitch, depends on the pattern. And this pattern happens to use 3. So is that like a very simple satin stitch? It's definitely simple. It is easier to learn than a lot of the videos I have been watching. So it was relatively easy to watch these much more complicated tutorials to figure out what I was doing, which is considerably less complicated. So what's this stitch even called? I think I have narrowed down to cloister stitch. And in Norwegian we call it klostersøm. So when I've been looking up these patterns, these items, the tapestries I have and the belt pools that I have been looking for klostersøm, etc, etc. So that seems to be the type of stitch, cloister stitch. And when you look that up, you are not gonna get this kind of stuff. You're gonna get probably a bunch of Hardanger stitching. Now what's Hardanger? Hardanger is a fjord in Norway, but it's also an area of Norway, and it is an area that has given name to this type of embroidery that I have in such high regard. Like, they're often used to make, yes, clothing, but a lot of the times tablecloths, maybe curtains, but a lot of tablecloths, and they're usually white or ecru. It's so It's so, again, dainty and ornate and small and time consuming. Like, these are family heirlooms. Like, if I ever got my mitts on one of these tablecloths, I'd be terrified of putting them on a surface anywhere, and I would probably put them behind a glass wall so I could never get any food, because no day goes by without me spilling food on myself. So yeah, but those videos have been helpful. There have been some good videos out there on hardanger stitch, even though as soon as you go beyond one stitch, they're doing something very different. So I had to learn to not obviously do exactly that, but some of the kind of ways that these stitches nest into one another didn't quite translate, but was useful enough for me to understand that yes, I need to be using the same holes in the canvas for the above and below stitch, but not the side-by-side stitches. I figured that out, so that was good. It was also just nice to have some demonstration of this stitch, because all I had to go by was this little illustration in the pattern. This has been a journey, guys. It's truly, I have been places. I have lost my mind to this whole project. So yes, cloister stitch, needlepoint, embroidery. This is where we're at. And so the next question was, okay, now that I know roughly what I'm doing, I need to know what I need. What are my supplies? And I'm looking at this pattern, and yes, you need yarn. And I'm not lacking in yarn. However, tapestry wool isn't knitting yarn exactly. And it's also, the fact that it's called tapestry wool, again, is adding to this name confusion thing, but don't be bothered with that. We're just calling it tapestry wool. I'm sure a lot of people are asking, why couldn't you just use yarn from your stash? And suppose you can. Don't see why not, but the color range. The color range of this stuff, I mean, we're talking a yarn that has 300 to 400 different colors. That is unmatched in knitting. The subtle differences in shades between each and every color in this yarn, this embroidery wool world, it's something else entirely. And often you want those subtle changes depending on what you're making. And there are good reasons to pick this yarn, but so the main argument for why, and let me just hold up one of these, or why you should be using some of these sort of little spools of yarn that come in 5 grams, 4 to 5 grams depending on your brand, is that they have a high twist. That's it, they don't come untwisted when you're stitching with them, allegedly. I find they come untwisted a lot. I have to put the twist in quite often, especially because I put in a lot of long strand when I do. Because this is the difference between embroidery and knitting, right? Knitting, you're just knitting straight from the skein. Can't really do that embroidery. You got to estimate your thread length and hope that that's going to cover the number of stitches you need to do. And very often it's either too little or too much, and it's very annoying because either you're going to be wasting a little bit of yarn that's too small, a little bit too small to be using other things, so I'm sure I could get 1 stitch out of this, or you're going to be having just a little bit too little left, and you have to get one of those little ends to make the last stitch you had to make. And there were so many ends to weave in, guys. There's so many ends, and we all know how I feel about weaving in ends. This shouldn't have been the craft for me. However, I think it's because I already have my wool on the needle. I can sort of just weave in right away. I don't have to get the needle, thread the yarn. It's already threaded, so it's a little bit, I don't tend to put it off. If I did that, I'd be in big trouble, because all the ends hanging at the back of your work is going to give you lots of trouble if you don't weave in as you go. Just take my word for that. I guess I can digress a bit by talking about needles as well, because I probably have a lot of needles like this, but I did decide to buy needles anyway because I have no clue what needles to use. So I did a quick Google of like, what's the sort of needle size? Yeah, they have needle sizes in this world as well. What's the sort of needle size that I'm gonna need for this sort of tapestry wool? And it said size 18. I don't know what that means, but I think the bigger the number, the smaller the needle. And I think I have a lot of bigger needles, so smaller number than 18. That's kind of what I prefer when I'm weaving in ends in my knitting. So I got a pony tapestry size 18 gold-plated sewing needle. And they don't stay gold-plated for very long, I have to say that. They've gone quite dark very quickly, which is fine because the gold plating had a bit of a funky smell to it that I don't personally like. So I like the needles more the more I use them. So that's good if anything. But could you use any of your darning needles at home in your knitting stash? Probably. I just personally like to, instead of being like, I got yarn, I got darning needles, to just like, let me just get the right tools here. Because I don't know yet. I am very new to this. I'm a complete novice. So I'm glad I got these. And it's nice that they come in a pack of 4, because sometimes I want to be weaving in more, so weaving in, old terminology, to stitch in more colors at once depending on what I'm filling out. And it's nice to not have to like rethread all the time, because like trying to shove this thick yarn into this fine little needle, it's not for the faint of heart when you have to do it over and over and over and over and over again. But you know, back to the stuff I was saying about the yarn. Could you use your stash yarn? Yeah, kind of, because like if you could, that's the thing again, like I just wanted to get the right yarn to know that, can I even call this yarn? I don't know. To know that I'm getting the right stuff, so I'm least, because I don't even know what effect to look for yet. I've never done this. But looking at this, now that I have it, it's looking a lot like Peer Gynt, which is one of my favorite Norwegian yarns. It has 4 plies of yarns that are highly twisted. I haven't held it together with a Peer Gynt strain. I don't know if they have this much of a twist to them. And also they cannot match the color range of this embroidery wool. So I would stick to this stuff. But like if you wanted to use stuff from stash, yeah, you could probably use other yarns. I'm sure there could be lots of really neat effects if you used hand-dyed yarns. There's a lot of really good like high twist worsted weight hand-dyed yarns out there. Like the world's your oyster. But yeah, I decided to keep it a bit simple and get the stuff that I need so that I can match up with the pattern. But if you're going to use other knitting yarn, I would just make sure to find something with a high twist, at least 4 plies. I'm not talking about the weight here, I'm just meaning the count of plies, at least 4. 8 would be great, but these have 4 and that seems to be the thing. Because then you're not getting this like super splitty experience. That's just not good when you're stitching. Anyway, as you can see, I have landed on anchor tapestry wool because that is indeed what is recommended in this pattern. And just to give you an idea of kind of what we're dealing with here, they come in these little 5-gram units and they have 10 meters each, which is a little bit hard to find because they don't tend to write all of this on these little spools. I've had to do a lot of looking up online, so there's a small chance that I got it wrong, but that's what I think that they are at the moment. I don't know why they don't write this on the skeins like we do in knitting. It's frustrating to me, but anyway. If you have 5 grams and 10 meters, that is the same as when you have a skein that is 100 grams and 200 meters. So essentially we're working with worsted weight yarn. I really have been talking about Peer Gynt and I'm wearing Peer Gynt, so this is, it's right here, turns out. I found another little shocking experience when it comes to the kind of weight, if you will. Oh, this one actually does say, so this varies from the like time that they made the yarn. These spools. So this one says that it's 10 meters. It doesn't say the grams, but at least this one has both the meters and the colorway and the dye lot. They don't like writing dye lots on. Some of them don't have the dye lot on, and then some, I guess, later versions maybe do. I hope it wasn't something they took away because that would be very bad. But anyway, I managed to get my mitts on both some new and old anchor tapestry wool. And I had a very quick look at these two. So this is the old, this is the new. There's no way that this is the same weight. Like, this is so much thinner. The older one is so much thinner than the newer one. So again, I had to like fine read on these little ball bands. And yeah, this unit, I'm hoping it's 5 grams as well. But this one comes in 13.7 meters. Sorry, I wrote down 30.5, it's 30.7. If it was 13.5, that would be about 270 meters in a 100 gram unit. That's DK2 sport weight. So over time, this wool has gone from being DK2 sport weight to now being worsted weight, and nobody's talking about it. I've been looking it up online and nobody seems to have mentioned the fact that this old and this new isn't the same anymore. So that kind of matters, because guess what? This pattern is recommending this old anchor yarn, not the current anchor yarn that we have. So this ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Do you want to know what made it even harder? It's been discontinued. not only is the old yarn gone because they've been replaced with the new one, the arguing is the same, but Anchor tapestry wool, as of March 2025, is no longer in production. It's been discontinued because DMC, a very famous embroidery company, has bought them and discontinued them to sell their own tapestry wool, which they've always had alongside Anchor. And I guess they're just, I suppose, eliminated some competition there. So I guess would recommend you use DMC, their own tapestry wool, embroidery wool, whatever you want to call it, which comes in 4 grams with 8 meters each, which at least ends up being the same if we're assuming that Anchor has 5-gram units. That's also 200 meters per 100 grams. So also worth the weight. I haven't seen this tapestry wool in person, but it seems like a lot of people are happy substituting between them. So at least there's that. I'm hoping there's not another situation like this. But yeah, anyway, I want to be absolutely clear that I am not saying that the embroidery world is using yarn weights the way I'm saying. I'm saying this is worsted weight. They're not using yarn weights like that in this craft. I'm just trying to convey and illustrate the difference here to an audience of knitters, just how much the thickness has changed and just nobody's talking about it. Embla, however, is talking about it. She has a lot to say. So, you done? So anyway, I had to make a spreadsheet. I had to, I suffered through it. I love making a spreadsheet. I enjoyed it, in fact. So my spreadsheet consisted of a lot of columns. It's still a work in progress. I even made some substantial changes even today. So it has a column. First one has the colors. I literally needed to get photos of the colors because I'm dealing with 12 colors to collect this. And yeah, they are illustrated in this pattern, sure, but they don't look like that. The illustrations, I think, literally have been made with like Sharpie back in the day. I say back in the day, I don't know exactly what year this pattern's from, but I know that these were all the rage in the 60s and 70s, which isn't that long ago, and yet somehow all the resources and this one company that was doing them, all gone. So, should have started with that. That's why we're sat here today. This is just like the kind of stuff that I grew up with. My grandparents had it at home, my great-grandma had it at home. It's often the kind of stuff that's considered a bit dated, so we brought it to the cabin and like that was the vibe, you know. Back to my spreadsheet. I had a column of the photos of the different colorways. I had columns for the old yarn numbering system. So, oh, did I mention that? Did I mention that the old Anchor yarn had a different coloring numbering system? So all the numbers here, they come in 3 digits, like 336, 337, 350, etc., etc. It goes down to 843. The current system has 4 digits. 8004, for instance, 8306. So I had to find a table to convert the old color numbering system to the new color numbering system. And if you're seeing this when there's just no chance you can get your mitts on any Anchor wool, or at least it's going to be very difficult because it already kind of is, you may want to translate that to another Anchor to DMC conversion spreadsheet, table, what have you. Yeah. My columns were for the old number system, the new number system, and the DMC equivalents. And then I needed a column, one for the cushion, how many skeins do I need there? One for the bell pull, how many skeins do I need there? And then one for how many skeins I need for the big tapestry that I don't think I'll make, but I added a column just in case. Now, do you remember what I said about how there are different meters here? I forgot that when I first made an order, so I have made a lot of orders. Because surely if this was 13.7 meters and this is 10, the count of number of stitches I'm going to need here is going to be more if I'm going to be using this, isn't it? You see how I have gone a bit loopy over this? So I had to do some maths and multiply, divide, whatever, so I know what one skein of this is the equivalent of this. And I have this for you. So 1 skein of this is actually the same as 1.4 of this. So you need almost 1.5 of this to have one of. The problem is that when I get started on something, I am so stubborn that I don't give up the harder it gets, which is a nice quality to have because I often give up before I've even tried, before I've even started. But the fact is that I had started, I had already committed to the spreadsheet, so I wasn't going to give up. And yes, of course, I needed a column for the total yarn required for the bell pull and the cushion, because those are the two that I'm currently committing to, though I kind of wish I had just committed to the tapestry right away because I'm really enjoying this despite what it may look like, okay? So yeah, I have made a lot of online orders. I have in fact lost count of how many online orders I have made, at least 5. Plenty from eBay where I was looking for some of the colors, because yeah, there were 2 of the shades of green, the very subtle shades of green. 2 of them I could not convert from the old system to the new system, so I actually don't know what they are, but I managed to get one of them off of eBay in the old colorway, as in this old hank. I got like 5 of these, so I basically bought all of the ones available over 2 orders, because in the beginning I didn't think I would do that, but then I was like, I think I will actually. I had to make a lot of online orders, and the first one I made, I thought was going to be the only one. However, one, that was before I realized the difference here. That meant I needed to order more. But also, this website lied about having this stuff in stock. I, in the end, got less than 1/3 of what I had ordered. The rest has been refunded. So that's been great. They did also send me 2 skeins that I ended up getting to keep because they were the wrong shade. So they, after the fact, sent the 2 that those were supposed to be. So yeah, it's been a useful site. They had the new and old color numbering conversion systems in there. But yeah, I wish they would be a bit more honest about what they actually have in stock and continuously update that. Like, you can automatize that. I don't know how, but like, that was a bit disappointing to finally get the yarn that I had ordered, waiting and waiting and waiting. Not because I waited a long time, but because I was impatient, because I really wanted to start it, okay? And then only to receive it and realize I gotta make a lot more orders to get started on this, because I really want to start now, but I barely have enough of anything here. So that's when I jumped online again and I ordered from lots of other sites. And one of the sites that I ordered from is actually a local sewing shop that I haven't been to in person yet, but it's not too far from here. And, you know, happy to support a South London shop, but they never sent me any confirmation emails about my order. And I had to order twice because they were very efficient at posting the first one. And I even was in email correspondence with them, which was very difficult because their online form didn't work, their email bounced, and yeah, there were no emails to respond to, so I couldn't tell them what my order number was, and I lost count of what I had actually ordered. So when I needed to order more from other sites, I had nothing to refer to. And even when I had finally got a hold of an email to their supervisor, when I finally got through the phone line a second time, because the first time they just hung up on me because they couldn't hear what I was saying because there was something wrong with the signal. Second time I got through, got the email, talked to the manager, and still didn't get a confirmation email. So, but I think I want to go to that shop in person. I think it would be really, really nice to see everything that they have. I guess I just say all this to say that I had to make a lot of orders, and I have ended up with more yarn than I'll need and some of the colors because I'd forgot that I'd ordered them from somewhere else because I had no evidence of said order. But yeah, that's when I found out, to my horror, that they're not that fussed with dye lots in this embroidery world. It seems like writing dye lots is either a recent addition to the skeins or a recent removal to the skeins. And one of the two, because there's some versions that come with it on the ball band and some of them that don't. So I don't know which it is, but like, that seems like an essential to me because I've seen some that are different dye lots and they look very different. And I thought maybe, again, I'm thinking with my knitting brain and it doesn't really matter so much in embroidery. But I think it does, because otherwise why would you have such a vast color palette if subtle differences in colors doesn't matter? I think it does. So that seems like a weird oversight. There was no like dye lot option, drop down menu or anything on any of these websites that I ordered from, and I ordered from many. Dye lot was just a surprise when I received the yarn, and even sometimes from the same order I would have received different dye lots, and that's just not a thing that happens in knitting unless you specifically ask for it. So that was a bit like, okay, so now I gotta portion out my yarns depending on whether I'm making the cushion or the bell pull, and hopefully it's gonna be fine when I use some of the leftovers for the tapestry when I inevitably have to order even more yarn. This has been a test of a lot of my, you know, mental faculties. It's a wonder that I'm still, you know, am I making sense? I was gonna say it's a wonder I'm making sense. Am I? Am I? I'm gonna put the yarn stuff aside for now. I have the yarn. I have got a nice little setup where I used my crochet blocking board that I haven't actually used to block any crochet squares yet, but it's been a really nice way to just organize all the different little units. I don't know, can I call them skeins? Both by color, by dye lot, and also trying to figure out those two that I couldn't translate to the new numbering system. One of them, like I said, I got the old yarn for, but the other one I just had to make a good guess. I'm using one of the guesses for the cushion. I'm going to use the other two for the belt pull. However, this was before I knew that I had to estimate more yarn because there's less meters on the new skeins, so I need to go and make one singular order for one skein. And like, these normally retail for like £1. Most of the ones I found were like £1.30. Some are on sale for less now just because they're being discontinued. Did I mention they're being discontinued? They're being discontinued. This one I had to pay £3 for alone because I only needed one and there was not free shipping. So yeah, it's been a lot of orders. This could have been a lot more affordable had it not been for the aforementioned factors. I don't want to know the end total sum of all this actually. So anyway, yarn aside, there are still more supplies I need. It's not just needle and thread like in knitting. No. You also need a canvas. And I even wondered, is it even called a canvas? Because in Norwegian embroidery, a canvas is a different thing than what we're looking for here. I don't know what, but I had to survive a very confusing and not at all illuminating video call with my mum and my aunt. My aunt used to be a craft teacher. That, yeah, it didn't make me any the wiser because they told me it's called a stramme, what I need. Stramme. I think that's called strammen in English or German. Not entirely sure. But these have their own kind of gauge to them. So some of you may be familiar with Ida fabrics. Ida. Anyway, this isn't exactly like that, but there's a woven piece to stitch into. So similar enough. And it can come in either mono or duo type. So mono is just you have a grid with just one thread, some going up, some going sideways. Duo, they come in pairs, but they do the same otherwise. And they have holes between the pairs. So there's rows, there's columns. So not too different from knitting in that regard. But my pattern says nothing, absolutely nothing about what I need in terms of gauge. What sort of stramme do I need? Presumably because this was a kit back in the day. And so it just was included. I don't have that. So I did some maths. And the first thing that happened was my mom and aunt saying the maths was wrong, but it wasn't. But I also was doubting it because I just thought the number I ended up with was too high. So I'm going to tell you how I was thinking about this. I seem to remember the chart has 63 columns and presumably also rows. But we're sticking to columns for now, but they should translate both ways because it's a square. And I know the end result's supposed to be 35 centimeters wide. There's 3 right stitches for each cell in the chart. So we've got to multiply 63 by 3 and take that number and divide that by 35 centimeters or 3.5 centimeters because then you get, anyway, I'm up. Yeah, I got 5.4. That's 54 holes per centimeter, per 10 centimeters. Don't ask me how I got there, but I got there. And I have a book that I don't have the book. I photocopied a book with patterns like these from the library in my hometown like a year or two ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And it has a lot of these patterns and they actually do tell you what kind of stramme canvas that you need. And so I made a spreadsheet. So we have a second spreadsheet where each row is a different pattern from this book. First column is this column count in the pattern, which wasn't as easy to find out because they come with very partial charts. So you have to figure out like if each corner is the same because it's a square that's symmetrical in every direction, like, you don't need to include the whole thing. You can figure out that it's flipped horizontally and vertically and you just fill out the gaps, right? It's not that difficult. You can literally rotate the book. So I had to do a bit of counting, and so there's one column for the column count. Then I have a column for the width in centimeters. Then I have a column for the stitches that I use. So like, is it a 3-thread stitch, 4, 2, they can change, right? And then the sort of stramme that the pattern recommends. And then I did a calculation, like the one I just told you about. And if that gave me the same number or close enough to what they recommend in the pattern in terms of the stramme, the canvas, I can be fairly safe that my calculation, which was 54, which I just thought was too high. None of the numbers in this pattern were that high. Highest one, I think, like 50. Most of them in the 40s, some in the 20s even. Am I making sense? I don't think I am at this point, but just play along. My calculations were correct. The numbers corresponded, maybe off by 1 whole stitch, thread count, whatever count in the canvas gauge, but we got there. My calculations were right, so I can assume that what I'm gonna need is what would in Norway back in the day a 54 grid of canvas, but they're selling it by inches here, so I had to divide that by 4, which is roughly what you get 1 inch out of 10 centimeters, which is 13.5. They don't come in decimals, so I had to pick, do I want to get a 13 count canvas or 14 count? I went with 13. I don't want it any tighter, but also going any looser, I'm afraid it's going to look maybe gappy or something. I don't think it would, but 13 seems to be the right thing to go by. However, it's hard to find the odd number count canvases by Zweigart than the even number ones. But I found it. It's way too big, so I probably paid a lot extra for a bigger canvas than I needed, but it's very hard to get it cut out exactly to the measurements that you need. Which you don't want to do, by the way. Don't get the measurements that you need for the finished product. You should get the measurements plus like 2 to 4 inches on each side. That's one of the things this pattern is pretty good at recommending, is actually being pretty clear about that. So I know what I need to cut out versus the final measurements. And at some point, I guess I had to make some good guesses. The Zweigart option comes up a lot. This is a German brand. Again, we're going back to Germany. It's always that seems to be the way, and there seems to be the go-to sort of canvas for this. They are in cotton, and yeah, it's the duo thread type. So then I got the canvas, and I obviously was immediately quite intimidated because it's literally an empty canvas. It's a blank canvas. There's nothing there. I have this faint childhood memory of stitching into a printed on canvas of this like silly little swan on the lake, and knew exactly that the part I stitch into the canvas is in the color that the canvas is in, and here I have to do a lot of counting, and you really gotta, if you start doing this when you're too tired, you're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna have to rip it out, and that's when the yarn gets a little bit worn, a bit bubbly. It doesn't peel, but it can get a little bit just untwisted and just not as pretty. So you don't want to make too many mistakes. You can rip things out, but like it will affect both the canvas and the yarn, as I've learned the hard way. So after this whole ordeal of buying things, ordering from all these different sites and all the different shipping fees, and yeah, I finally sat here. I had all the resources. I had my needles, I had the wool, I had the canvas, and I had the print pattern. I even got a hoop. I figured out in the end that I'm probably not going to be using it. Not only just because I don't remember using a hoop when I did the little swan thing back in the day. It also is it's not very good. The frame keeps just popping off. I try to kind of tension the canvas. I'm not going to like be bending it too much, but like this just doesn't want to stick. So I don't know if this one's more intended for decoration. I didn't use it in the end. I also got a really big one because I didn't want to bend too much of the canvas because it is a little bit stiff. And putting in a dent in it seemed very easy, and I'd rather not. I know it would have been easier to work with a smaller hoop than this massive one, but what can you do? So I might use it for something else, sell it on, who knows, but I did not end up using that. So I'm sure you are all super interested to see what I ended up making. I will start off by showing my little swatch. So yes, I swatched. I famously, no swatcher in knitting, I decided to start doing the middle of the chart outside what I was going to do it in the end, just to see if I can do the stitches. I found that right away. It looked really good. Quite surprised by that because I've actually struggled a lot with the tensioning since. But no, this time it went pretty well. So I was like, right, why don't we just get to it then? So I decided to work from the middle of the canvas, the middle of the chart. This has been one of the many useful things I've learned from needlepoint videos, even though they are for a slightly different stitch and more, you know, guiding canvases. I found them very useful, and people recommending starting from the middle, though you don't have to. You can start from corners, but if you're starting from the middle, it's easier to find out that everything's gonna like line up in the end. Like, let's say that I started with a frame instead, I would have had to have a very good count because the stitches aren't very distinguishable when they are side by side, and it would have been very easy to be off. And then let's imagine I'm starting to fill out the middle and finding out that I'm off, and I'm gonna have to redo lots of the stitches around. So it's way easier when you're working with a blank canvas to start in the center, and you can find the center of your canvas by simply just folding it in half one way and folding it half the other, and there's your middle. So that's an easy way of doing it. You could also do it with a ruler, dividing in half, you know, whatever, however you want to measure it. And yeah, so I'm going to show you at long last, Embla's Stay. Ta-da! I am not done yet, as you can see. The border around is taking so much longer and it's so much less fun than the middle, but the middle has been just a delight. Like, that came together so quickly. It was so satisfying, and it is so beautiful. It is not the colors I would have normally have picked. It wasn't even the colors that I thought I was working from as going by the picture and the pattern, but yeah, it's really nice. I really like it. The further out I came though, the less I have enjoyed what I am doing, I have to say. I found it a little bit difficult to work with the two very close shades of brown orange to do the sort of edges of the centerpiece, but the frame around that I'm working with now is so tedious. I think I have got through 3-4 seasons of Lost, which I'm rewatching now, just because I am intensely watching Yellow Jackets, but there's only one episode per week because it's currently running, and that's not enough. So I thought I'd watch some other plane crash survivalist kind of story that's a little bit less scrim. Anyone else watching Yellow Jackets? It's so good. It's so good. Also, while I'm holding it up there, I'm gonna show you the back. The back looks a disaster. I think from afar it doesn't look too bad, and that's the only way I'm gonna show you, because it's not good up close. It's very thick, and you know, the advice from needlepoint videos is to just thread your yarn end just once to the back of where you just where you were just stitching, and I don't like that because then you can just pull it easily from the front and have it come undone. So I like to stitch it once that way and then once the other way again, so that it's a bit locked in. Well, that does also make it a lot thicker, but it's not too bad. It hasn't made it look bulky or uneven from the front, as opposed to what would have happened if this was knitting. So all in all, I think it's looking good, but I am finding myself running out of some color because of the reasons I just mentioned, with the yarns having changed over time and everyone acting like it hasn't. I honestly can't get over that, because that matters a lot. So I need to get more of the mid green, and I might need to get more of the main color for the frame, because I've run out very, very quickly of 3 of the 4 skeins I was going to use. That was a lot of words just to get to that point. Emily just laid on my lap like, oh, same girl, same. So do I have any comforting words to anyone who wants to approach this craft? No. It's very hard to find the patterns. They are no longer available. I was lucky to find one on eBay. There aren't any direct resources, but Hardanger stitch, satin stitch, and needlepoint videos, if you watch them all, not all, but like one of each, some of each, it will come together and make a little bit of sense. I think it helps to just have close-up photos of the sort of stitch that you're gonna work, just to have that, and maybe just make your life easier and use some DMC. I need to use the right DMC wool. Once I get more of the hang of this is my first project. I need to really feel like I got some experience under my belt before I put anything out there, but rest assured I will once I'm comfortable with that. I think that would be really interesting. It'd be nice to share just the way I work. I have a few like neat tips and tricks that I have just kind of come across in my journey this past couple of week or two. But I'm really enjoying it. It's been such a long time since I discovered a new craft, and this has just been, despite my grievances with the very, very steep learning curve and just trying to adapt a old pattern into current resources, supplies, if you will. It's been nice, it's been fun, it's been an interesting challenge. It's really got me sucked into something in a way that I think most of my hobbies and interests haven't for a long time. And that's been nice. That's been real nice. It's been good. I'm now actually gonna dabble into needlepoint next because I found that they're making William Morris inspired needlepoint cushion kits. So I'll be getting onto that next. I ordered one today. It's gonna match Embla's dog bed, so but it's going in the sofa. So I will be getting into that as well, just because there's you know, more products for that out there, more videos. That seems to be the more normal, common kind of needlework. Needlepoint, needlecraft, needlepoint. Terminology is still sort of cementing here. So I'm going to put this aside now. You will hear me talk more about it in the next episode, I'm sure. But I haven't just been stitching, I have been crocheting. Do you guys remember that blanket? Not the one I was doing Love solid color squares of, that we just forgot about. The one that I was making different color squares, because I got inspired by a crochet scrappy blanket that was like folded over a chair in the background of an interview of a Norwegian show about people living off the grid from the late 90s. And I just really liked it. So I zoomed in this very pixelated 90s quality online stream. That's Embla drinking water. It sounds really weird, I know. And picked up those colors, but like in a way more radiant palette, turns out. And got from a yarn shop in London called Knit, which is in Teddington. I don't go there often enough. It's a little bit far for me, but I do want to go there again because they just have so much nice stuff. But anyway, I got the yarn 2-3 years ago and started stitching away and crocheting. The crochet stitches are stitches. Anyway, and found to my horror that every time I made a square it was smaller than last time. And my squares just kept getting smaller until they seemed to settle on something. And I made a blanket again. I had a spreadsheet, I had a whole thing worked out, so I'd get every combination of every color, and I believe this was my first result. Is this the back and the front? Who's to say, really? I think that's the front. And found that it was a bit smaller than expected. It was kind of like this at the time, so it's a weird shape, not very usable. Yeah, I could hang it over the back of a chair, but that's about it. So I doubled it. So I've spent one Christmas doing each half of this blanket. So this is the other half. So this is what we have. It's not like a lap blanket. It's just like kind of almost like a perfect square, not quite. So I was like, you know what? We need another third. So I've ended up ordering more yarn from Knit. And I think it was a year ago, back when I was about to move into here. So December, over a year ago, that I was making another set of squares. So every combination. It's like one combination I have to leave out to make the math, but I've had those stowed away this whole time until now, where I finally got the black yarn out to put them all together while binging through Severance, which is another really good show going right now. And we have another little sort of awkward rectangle that I had with the first one before I added another half. So this is my third that I'm going to add to this. That's why I'm talking about these in terms of thirds. So once I have this, I will have a more blankety size and shape of this blanket, but I want to double that. So there will be 6 of these. I guess there won't be thirds anymore. There will be sixths. English is weird. But that will probably take another 3 years. So I'm not rushing into that. For now, I'll be stitching on this. And I am using Hooked by Robin's tutorials on all-in-one go crochet edging, by the way. It's golden. It's truly so good. And yeah, then I'll at least have a usable blanket, and I can think about doubling it in the future. And I might do all those 3 parts that I will add to these 3 parts all in one go, and just accept that that will take forever and I won't get like a satisfying finish until, I don't know, 2027 or 8 or something. I don't know. Not thinking about that now. But yeah, if anyone wants to know what yarn I'm using Filcolana Saga, except for the orange where I'm using Tin Peregrine. So that's the thinner version of this yarn that has come out a bit more recently. And you will, I guess, hear more about this blanket next time I'm working on more of the squares. But yeah, I'm enjoying that. It's been nice to get a little break from knitting sometimes as well. It's my craft of choice, but you know, sometimes I feel the urge to do other crafts as well. It's rare, but we are enjoying it and celebrating it when it happens, after all. I am amazed that both me and the camera and the daylight has lasted for as long as I've been babbling about this. Even my dog is still up and running. Do you want to come here? Do you want to come here? Oh, baby. Little Embla update. How is she doing? She's an icon. She is the moment. And she has met a lot of other schnauzers lately. I'm kind of like starting to wonder if they're like becoming a trendy breed. I don't know how I feel about that. Obviously, I don't need to like be all unique. I think they're the best breed ever, but you know, you don't want to see them being overbred and stuff. So anyway, but we've really enjoyed seeing other dogs around, other schnauzers around. And yeah, she's doing well. There's not really much to say. She's a babe. I think with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you have enjoyed me dabbling into a different craft. Like I said, I've never written as many notes as I have for this to like proper recap the just mind-boggling journey I have had to get here, and we're not done yet. I am completely in denial about how I'm going to get this becoming a cushion cover. I can't sew, so we'll take that when we get there. We'll deal with that then. I'm also struggling to find a canvas for the bell pull because it's got quite weird dimensions, and it just seems like I have to order a very excessively large canvas than I need, and that's very annoying. I need one that's 90 times 35 centimeters, and that's just not dimensions I've been able to find in the 13 count canvas. So yeah, struggling a little bit with that, but not something I have to think about right now. I have a feeling the next thing I'll be working on is that William Morris cushion. So yeah, I hope you all are doing well, and I will catch you guys next time. Toodles. Are we done? Okay. I think she's done. Go ahead. So anyway,